Currently, there's a lot of focus on that heat wave that struck the Pacific Northwest over the weekend into early this week. 121 degrees up there at Lytton. That sets Canada's all-time record high, and it's possible that may have to go through a certification process where they pull the instruments and test them. However, currently that is the number being reported by Environment Canada. And of course, close in the running, Portland got up to 116 back on Monday, and yesterday OMAC hit 117. And you can peruse the map, and I'm going to go over some of the all-time records. Spokane, Portland, Victoria, Seattle, Medford, Quileute, and a lot of other stations reached their all-time records. Hermiston in Oregon, which is near Pendleton, a little bit to the northwest, set the all-time record for Oregon at 118, and nearby Dallasport, Washington, on Monday hit 118 for their state record. And with all that heat up there in the mountains of British Columbia, the Weather Service at Juneau is reporting many rivers at flood stage up there in southeast Alaska. The surface analysis does show that we're getting a bit of a break up there in the Pacific Northwest. The marine layer is working up to the Cascades there, 74 at Portland at noon Pacific time. However, out to the east, the desert's coming up to 103 there at Spokane, and we'll probably see that a lot higher later this afternoon. In the central U.S., we've got this front coming down from Iowa, Chicago, Detroit. A lot of storms along the length of that front, and some cooler air up to the north. You have to go all the way up into the Lake Superior region before you hit that air. And down to the south, abundant tropical air, lots of dew points in the 70s, and we've got this little weak intrusion of the Bermuda High coming into the Carolinas. The tropical moisture is also extending out to the west. We've got a dew point of 67 at Roswell, 64 at El Paso, and 60 at Nogales, and you go all the way to Phoenix, 57. And typically in the early summer, we see dew points there of about 30 to 40. So that's quite an increase in moisture. And even Las Vegas there reporting 57. So we could see storm activity today as far west as Nevada. A quick check of conditions in Canada does show a lot of that hot air. Considering, again, this is only 12 noon Pacific time, so these readings will be coming up at lots of low to mid-90s in the valleys of the Canadian Rockies, and the heat starting to intrude into Alberta and Saskatchewan. We've got 102 there, northeast of Edmonton, and you go all the way to Uranium City and some of these little stations here, 97, 93, and we can tell by the gradient, which is coming up from the southwest, some of that very hot air may be intruding into Nunavut in the Northwest Territories. So we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on that warm front there. Some of that air may spill into the Hudson Bay region over the next day or two. And then on the other side, we've got this baroclinic high over the Hudson Bay region. The east side of it bringing some cold air advection into Quebec and Ontario with lots of 50s and 60s out in that region. And up to the north, things look pretty mild. Yep, up there at the top of the map, 30s and 40s, that's about where we typically see it. And Alaska, likewise, also looking very seasonable for this time of year. Focusing on the southwestern U.S., monsoon once again in full effect, New Mexico, even up to Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. So this is kind of a late summer type pattern here. The Mogollon Rim producing some storms. That's pretty normal, even in June. However, out over the valleys around Tucson, storms going up, and even up in the Four Corners area, some storms likewise. And it looks like there's a little, maybe mid-level system moving across Nevada. We'll check the upper air charts for that one. And elsewhere, huge plume of moisture. That's abundant moisture coming up from South Texas into the rest of the state, into Oklahoma, into the bulk of New Mexico. So we'll also look at the precipitable water. In fact, why don't we do that right now? I think if we jump right in on this, you can kind of visualize what's going on. So precipitable water, it's a integrated measure of moisture through the vertical, and obviously the axis runs about like that, but there is a finger going out towards West Texas and Arizona, and another coming up to the north, kind of co-located with that system, Tropical Storm Enrique, I think, and that is slinging moisture northward towards Arizona. And if we animate this, you can see the flow moving northward. Of course, a lot of the moisture being lost to the free atmosphere through thermals, through convection, and so on, but it's being continually replaced by advection from the south-southeast. And the mid-tropospheric chart does show an upper-level low right there over western Utah. If we animate this, you can see the spin in that little noise field there and shortwave moving across southern Nevada. And it looks like ultimately this vortex will kind of get lifted northeast, very vague, but maybe by Friday or Saturday it emerges on the east side of the Rockies in Wyoming. However, the other thing that we do see is that the flow over Arizona remains pretty weak. If we bring up a sounding, this is just a random sounding for, looks like midday Thursday. Some decent lapse rates there, some decent moisture. However, the flow is very light easterly to very light southwesterly. And the hodograph shows that we should not see very much storm organization. Focusing on the southeastern U.S., it looks like the subtropical high is trying to muscle in. This is, again, that same mid-level tropospheric chart, and that shows that ridge extending about like that. So the mid-level flow is easterly along the Gulf Coast, running about like that. Then it rounds that ridge and becomes southwesterly. So that's kind of what's going on there. And if we bring up a sounding for Mississippi, this is going to be earlier today, you'll see that easterly flow right there. And it's a fairly deep easterly flow all the way down almost to the surface. And that's part of the reason the moisture and convection is so extensive. This is very much a late summer pattern, and a very spectacular squall line there moving off the western coast of Florida, passing Tampa, passing Tallahassee. So that's embedded in that easterly flow, and pretty much all the convection out ahead of it. Likewise, moving east to west, with the tops shearing off towards the south, where the flow up in the top part of the troposphere is a little bit more northerly. Yeah, we need to check on that dust. This is where it was about 4 days ago, out there in the eastern Atlantic, and if we run this through the 4 days since then, you can see that plume moving into the Windward Islands. That's where we were when we talked about it a couple days ago. And now, yep, it's in the Caribbean. Looks like it's kind of in this area. So we're going to watch for that to maybe make its way into Texas, Louisiana, maybe on Friday. Looks like some storm problems in the northeastern U.S. We've got this enhanced risk for Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, and a slight risk extending down into Pennsylvania. Already got storms underway all the way down the line into the Indianapolis area. There's the bird's eye view, and this can be helpful rather than going straight to the radar. You can pretty much pinpoint the strongest cells, even if they're out of radar coverage or in a gap. It's pretty evident. Those cells in Pennsylvania, they're like right here around State College up to Scranton. Those are looking pretty good. And looks like an unrestricted moisture inflow field out ahead of it. Also, this line right here in western Massachusetts, that looks pretty impressive. Let's zoom in on that. So that's almost certainly going to break the heat wave, which has been plaguing the region the past few days. And there's the latest shot. This storm looks like it's coming through the Springfield, Massachusetts area. And this time of year, we do have to be concerned with the potential for tornadoes. And SPC only has severe watch boxes out, so that's probably not a huge concern. However, the storm This tail end area here is pretty isolated. If I lived in that area, I'd be very tempted to chase it, although it does look like it is a little bit fast moving. But that's going to be in the Boston area, probably by the time we get this video uploaded. So if you're looking for some weather to track, yeah, head to that Boston radar and see what's going on. And there could be stuff all the way down into the Hudson River Valley of New York. And there's the surface map at this hour. Leading edge of that line, about like that. Some elements kind of maybe out ahead of it. But yeah, that's heading into that corridor, and you can see the temperature dew point spread is quite high, so these will be a little bit high based. But abundant moisture, 70s dew points will fuel those storms. And looking up and down here, looks like the average parcels, 97 over, say, 68. I can also see that the southwesterly flow will help shrink those hodograph wind traces to where there should not be a whole lot of shear interacting with these storms. And it's worth pointing out that the record for the date at Boston is 95, and they're showing 98 at this hour. I did want to return to some of that model data from last week. This is the forecast conditions in Portland from the Thursday morning national blend of models. And what this is showing us, this is taken into account the ensembles, all of the available guidance. They've got a median temperature for Monday of 110. And yeah, that's the forecast temperature. Now on Wednesday morning, the deterministic high-resolution GFS was going for 121 at Portland for Monday evening. Now obviously we didn't hit that temperature. But Thursday morning, some of the numbers we were getting were a little bit more realistic. 114 for Sunday evening, and it cooled off to 102 for Monday. So the deterministic model, a little bit erratic, but the ensemble approach, the national blend of models, that really seemed to do a fairly good job forecasting this event. The 2 p.m. data for today beginning to flow in, and I can see OMAC is already up to 110, 113 at Kamloops, and Lytton is actually looking a little bit cooler. I guess they're getting a little bit of that marine influence coming in through the valleys. Looks like another scorcher down in Washington, 112 at Lewiston. So some of that heat is starting to come into the Rockies proper and around the lee side as well. And if we take a look up north to see what it's doing at this hour, we've got 104 at Fort McMurray and 104 at Fort Smith, and I think that could break a record. Yeah, let's see, Fort Smith. And yep, we've broken the all-time record of 103 set in 1941. However, at Fort McMurray, the record is 38.9. Yeah, that's going to be 102. So that is, yeah, we're above that. So we've already got all-time records being set in Alberta and the Northwest Territories. 100 at Stony Rapids, Saskatchewan. And that breaks the all-time record of 98 set in June 2002. Yep, so we might as well take a look at the GFS and see that plume coming into the Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And let's see what happens tomorrow. That's what I'm wondering. Yeah, see that plume right there coming into just north of Churchill. I think that's 14 right there at Churchill. That's 57 Fahrenheit, but I guess maybe that's a little sea breeze right along the coast. However, widespread 90s coming into the coastal regions of Manitoba tomorrow. And looking at Friday, yep, hot one in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Western Ontario, heat wave for that region. And I guess the good times keep on coming for Saturday. And for Sunday, looks like that heat wave infiltrating northern Ontario coming into Quebec. And that's the last vestige of it right there around Moosonee. Some, looks like maybe 70s and low 80s. And that could be the very end of it. Yep. And that's all she wrote. Okay, well, it's about time to get this wrapped up and uploaded, so I'll leave it there. I want to thank you for your support, and if you can, please pass along word of this program to your friends and any hobbyists, professionals that you know. We'd like to see more of you joining us. Okay, until tomorrow, have a good one. Bye-bye.